iRacing.
The wide-open expanses of the Australian outback offer some incredible opportunities, and the designers of the Bend were not about to waste an inch of space. We're about to race on a real behemoth as we get ready to watch round 2 of the Porsche Owners Club Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Alex Goldschmidt. Behind the scenes is our director, Christian Duploy, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Alex, I feel like half the challenge here is just learning the layout with how many curves there are.
Yeah, I mean, 35 turns, runs clockwise, 12 to the left, 23 to the right. It's the second longest permanent circuit in the world. After, of all places, the Green Hell, the Nordschleife. But yeah, these are going to be some seriously long laps here tonight, Joe.
Well, since there is so much to go over, why don't we take a brief moment and check out our track guide to learn a little bit more about it. Welcome to the Bend Motorsport Park. Located about an hour east of Adelaide, this relatively new facility boasts not only modern amenities, but a mind-boggling adaptability to just about any type of racing. With 7 different layouts available on iRacing, ranging from nearly 5 miles to barely over 1 mile, this circuit is suitable for everything from Formula V's up to sports car prototypes. In fact, it is currently the second longest permanent racecourse in the world, only behind the Nürburgring. While its surroundings might look a little bland at times, the track itself is not lacking in variety and excitement. Slow hairpins, fast winding S's, exciting rises and falls in elevation all ensure that you'll never be bored during the lap. It hosts everything from motorcycles to touring cars, sports cars, and has even held a round of Asian Le Mans. Of course, the crown jewel is the ever-popular Australian supercars. Though it was only built in 2018, it's easy to see why this track has gained a fan base so quickly in its short history. I mean, the track map here says it all, Alex. Look at how technical this place is.
Yeah. Well, also the thing is that there's 85 meters worth of total elevation changes here at the Bend, actually now known as Shelby Power Motorsports Park. It's 100 kilometers south of the state capital of Adelaide, and 4.8 miles. I mean, it's going to be a tricky one for the drivers tonight when we're going to see lap times just north of 3 minutes, but it's going to be that long round from turn 35 down to turn 1. That's going to be the biggest opportunity for overtaking here, I think, but this is the first one for you and me commentating on this circuit. I mean, the West Circuit would have been fine, but no, they decided to go GT style here tonight.
Yeah, I've only gotten to call a race here once on the sim so far, and that was with the IMSA Vintage cars a few months ago, and certainly provided quite a challenge for the drivers. Now, before we get to the challenge on the track itself, let's talk about our sponsors, which includes Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Top Gun Wealth, your retirement wingman. Contact them today for a complimentary financial review at TopGunWM.com. That's TopGunWM.com. So, championship looks pretty much how you saw the finish on last week. Colby Isabel currently up on the top with his victory. Dylan Scott came in behind him with Dustin Heindel rounding out the podium finishers, and Dustin has been looking for that for a long time. He didn't get a single podium last season, and here he kicks it off with one right away. Then it was Jad Duncan, Marciniak, Rondeau, Sams, Leclerc, and Rondeau to round out your top 10 finishers to score points in the opening salvo. But let's talk about today's race. Alex, give us the race details.
Yep, it's the second round of Season 2, 12 rounds in all, 40 minutes with a mandatory pit stop due to fuel limitations. We are, of course, continuing with the wonderfully balanced Porsche 911 992.2 Cup Car. Rolling start, 2 spare cars at their disposal here at the Bend.
So, pretty simple format that they've been using for a few seasons now. And obviously they like this car as it has stuck around since last season when it was introduced. But qualifying here just about over. The checkered flag is out, but drivers able to finish their hot laps. And so far, I think only one driver is out on the circuit currently able to do so. That's BJ Fulton with one more corner to go. Let's see if he improves on that third place of a 2:58.9. Nope, he is going to actually park it off screen. So that is going to be it. Our 11 cars have set a lap time. Thankfully, all 11 have indeed gotten a legitimate lap time in. And we'll see how it plays out in the race itself. But with this many corners, as you'd expect, Alex, there's a good discrepancy on lap times, as you see Jad Duncan with the quickest time at a 2:57 flat. Dylan Scott will start next to him. Did not take the pole. That seems to be a trend recently. He's good in the races, but the qualifying seems to lack. BJ Fulton will start from third spot as Dustin Heindel is in fourth. Then it's Leiden Rondeau starting in fifth position. After that, Mark Rondeau, his dad, starts behind him in sixth. It'll be Chris Marciniak in the seventh spot. And then Alan Watts will start in eighth. I'll just round these out as we've only got 3 more cars. John Momeyer starts in ninth with Larry Haas in 10th and Jim Garamani in 11th. We have, it looks like, about 8 seconds between P1 and P11 in qualifying.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fairly new circuit, and when we did have a chat post-race last time out at the opening round of the series, Joe, that Dylan Scott said, yeah, I know of the track, I've never raced it. So this is again, this is the thing about POC. We always find these little gems, well, not in the case of the Ben Motorsports Park here tonight, but it is going to be when they get through turn 9, and then it's lots of right-hand corners, of course, that dominates this track. So the right side tyres could be in duress, but it is going to be about a case of just keeping on all the black stuff, because there's plenty of runoff area, plenty of grass you can mow with the front splitter.
Yeah, you do not want to go off. Thankfully, there's not many barriers to hit. They use that outback that I mentioned in the intro to kind of give them plenty of runoff space, but you don't want to go too far off, because one thing that I find unique about this place, there's not a lot to kind of give you a sense of direction. There's not a lot of identification points off in the scenery. I feel like if you go off, it could be very easy to get a little lost and not know where to return.
Yeah, so the left hand won't know what the right hand is doing on the steering wheel or on the paddle shift for that matter. But yeah, looking at the weather here, Joe, 70 degrees Fahrenheit air temp, 74 degrees track temp. So we're looking at 21 Celsius, 23 Celsius. Mostly cloudy. Track is bone dry. I mean, if this was in the wet, there would be quite a lot of rolling rivers across the circuit.
That's for sure. Not a whole lot, I would imagine, in this area in terms of rain splashing down, but yeah, it's thankfully dry for today's race and a pretty cool track, as you said. So should hopefully be plenty of grip out there. The question will be who can keep the mistakes away, who will be able to keep the speed up over the 40-minute race. And then, of course, there is the other question, Alex. At a 3-minute lap, you better have your fuel timing down and not try to stretch it too long.
Yeah, I think the person that we need to speak about again, Mr. BJ Fulton in the 82 car starting on the inside of road 2. He has always been the tour de force when it comes to fuel management.
Good point. So he'll probably have it down to an exact science. Now, granted, it should be a pretty wide pit window, so you don't have to try and hit it exactly. You just don't want to stretch it too far in this series. We'll see who decides to try and go long, and also what the racing in general is going to look like. As you heard Alex mention, there's really one good passing zone down into turn one. Other than that, it's going to take a bit of a lunge in some of the other parts of the track, even into the hairpins, just because they aren't super long straightaways. So will it be rather processional? Or will we get some adventurous drivers as they are on their way? Thankfully, not on a full pace lap. It is only 2 corners, and then we are on our way for 40 minutes as Jad Duncan will get the green flag. Already the pace car is in. They cannot go until Barney waves it, so he does have to wait a little bit patiently, and there it is. Green flag is out. It's a long run down to this first corner. It's a pretty good start from Dylan Scott around the outside. We're already seeing 3 wide at the very back of the field, but as they come down into the braking, can Scott take it sweeping the long way around? He's going to try for it. He keeps the speed up. It switches back into 2, and it looks like Dylan Scott might have the lead. Oh, it's not there yet.
Kind of reminds me of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course's first 3-corner complex, as we're now going to go through turn 4. Scott right behind Jad Duncan, and let's not forget Jad Duncan has, I think that's his 2nd pole in a row, but BJ Fulton right on the case with the 08 as we head in towards turn 5, then it's going to, well, it's through turn 6, and now this is where things get a little bit technical, folks, because we're going through turn 7, turn 8, then it's going to be a very tight right-hander here at 9 that pretty much comes back onto itself. And, well, Dustin Heindel and Lydon Rondeau are going wheel to wheel at the moment, but Rondeau has to slot in behind Mr. Chips Ahoy, aka the Cookie Monster, in the number 117, and holds on to P5. I think one of the good things is that this looks to be a very flowing circuit. You can see the camber changes coming in as they're heading into turn 16. There are a heck of a lot of corners to go through, folks, on these laps here tonight. I think we're predicting around about maybe 13, 14 laps total by the time we hit the checkered. But John Momair closing in on Larry Haas in the number 7 car, but then he's got Jim Garamani bringing up the tail end of the field.
You can see definitely one of the twistiest parts there through the S's. Jim Garamani at the back as we take a look at how Lydon Rondeau got overtaken. Nicely done by Dustin Heindel to sneak that one through. Certainly looks like he caught him napping a bit.
Oh, and he's got off as well, and that's heading, I think, down out of turn 24 into 25. And one of the things that I'm noticing a little bit, that there was a little sort of sense of Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli at that point of the track. It's like quite funny that a lot of newer tracks, I mean, this track has only been open since 2018, so it's quite a newbie when you think about it.
It is very young in relative terms to many of the racetracks that you can find around, but it certainly provides something unique. I will say that as we ride on board with Larry Haas looking back at John Momeyer. So this is what happened to Rondeau. And did he just goose it a little hard, or was it that inside curb?
Yeah, it might have been a bit of both, really. But, you know, that's now put him all the way down into 10th spot behind John Momeyer, who's closing in on Larry Haas again. So this battle now becomes the battle for P8. So Haas, Momeyer, Rondeau, Garamani, and, well, biggest movers at the moment, really, is Larry Haas up 2 spots. Mark Rondeau, Chris Marciniak and Alan Watts. Here goes Rondeau down the nearly, well, a 1 kilometre long stretch, so that's 0.62 of a mile. And Rondeau gets through nice and neatly. Momeyer does not really fight it, but it is a long race still to go, and I think it's about just hitting your markers here at the bend, because, as you said, if you go off track, you don't know what's going to happen. But there we see the Top Gear Grand Tour livery of Jad Duncan again. Ambitious but rubbish on the back bumper. And then we got the power, as Jeremy Clarkson would say. But Dylan Scott is looking rather feisty tonight.
Certainly is putting on the pressure at this point, but Chad Duncan is withstanding it well. He still leads this race, albeit not by much. We can see him up ahead, just a few car lengths in front, as it's a fast sweeper through 13, 14, and 15 here. And then it's back into that S's section once again. Watch this. They come at you thick and fast and offline in comparison to the 83. Dylan Scott was taking a peek, but there's no place to take the speed.
Yeah, they've just come up through the top part of the circuit, now coming through at a T21. Then it's going to be the left-hander here at 22 before a short blast, a little bit of a descent and an incline through into the hard braking zone, around about the 60-meter mark there for Dylan Scott. All the way down to first gear, now on the power, accelerating through at a turn 23 and 24. Then it's on to this right-hander that, you know, opens up initially, but then cabins to the right-hand side, and you can see that Dylan Scott nearly got a little bit caught out there, trying to put the pressure on Chad Duncan, and he really cuts across the curbing quite nicely. But one of the other things I've noticed here at the bend, Joe, is that some of those curbs are quite deceptive. Some of them are quite flat, and then there are others that have integrated sausage curbing involved as well, to boot.
I was just noticing that as well. It seems like you have to have knowledge of where you can get close, where you cannot around this circuit, and certainly don't tempt fate too much. We had an incident between Garamani and Momar a little bit earlier, and we've got a replay of it. And this is down through the S's, and Garamani maybe just was a little bit too ambitious carrying his speed through the S's.
Yeah, unfortunately John was on the receiving end and got the short end of the stick, but I think Jim might have picked up a mechanical black flag for that one. Well, he's already towed it into the pits. So yeah, mechanical black flag for Jim Garamani, as Dylan Scott still putting the pressure on down the start-finish stretch. Just over 0.6 of a mile, and Dylan Scott puts in a 2:57.9. He's looking to the inside here of Chad Duncan into T1. Duncan cuts across the front of his bumper, but Dylan Scott keeping his wheel tracks. Sometimes it's not always about thinking, can I make the move? It's how much pressure I can put on the person in front of me.
He's putting a lot of pressure on him for now. And as they come up to one of the fast sweepers of 5, it then chucks you right into the heavy braking of 6. One of those hairpins where maybe you can see a pass from time to time. Leiden Rondeau illustrated that perfectly just on the first circuit around here, but it didn't happen this time. Dylan Scott finally giving some attempts to try and get by this green machine, and there's another one, and just nearly brushed that rear bumper. They are really tempting fate.
Yeah, I think it's just what Dylan wants to try and do is not to be looking at the rear bumper of Chad Duncan all the way through until the pit stops and maybe afterwards. But, I mean, looking at it from this perspective, you know, they have already cleared off from BJ Fulton, and BJ's about 3.6 seconds behind this dueling pair at the front end of the field. Dustin Heindel, Mark Rondeau, they round out your overall top 5 with just 7.5 minutes completed of this 40-minute sprint race. But, again, it's just... There's a bit of a, you can see there, there's one of the curbs I was talking about there, Joe. Like, there is the sausage curbs are so aggressive here, unlike, say, if you have a race at Monza, they're quite discreet, whereas here at the bend, you can't exactly miss them.
And I kind of wonder how much of that is down to the fact that they have things such as the Australian supercars race here, known for really tackling some of the curbs hard. They have to be pretty tall to keep them from cutting the corners too much. Leiden Rondeau, who's gotten back on the horse and is trying to see if he can overtake a few spots, is now caught up to Larry Haas. This is for 8th place, and Larry is looking like he is not all that interested in giving it up quickly. Let's see how hard he fights as he takes a bit of a wider line, and there's a look from Leiden Rondeau, but he just doesn't have the room.
No, and I think just like any racetrack, I mean, yeah, okay, it's 4.8 miles long, it's got 35 corners, but there's plenty of places to maybe make an opportunity for yourself. But we do see that Leiden Rondeau, in comparison with Larry Haas, is a bit more aggressive when it comes to slowing down for the corners, carries a little bit more momentum through them. But in the meantime, Chad Duncan has pulled away from Dylan Scott, who lost time in Sector 2. It's a very long sector, 1:16.7, plays 1:17.1, and another couple of tenths lost by Dylan Scott, but he's starting to gain that back. But they're very equally matched in the opening sector, are our leading pair.
Oh, but there was a spin just now. There's Dylan Scott around. How much time does he lose as he allows BJ Fulton by? He allows Dylan Scott by, or excuse me, Dustin Heindel by, and Dylan Scott is able to get going once again in fourth position. It was about 8 seconds lost to the lead from that. Does he have enough to run him back down?
Yeah, we're going to now I think we're going to have a replay of that coming up now. So heading into T1, nosedives down under braking, turns it in at turn 1, but bumps the sausage curb, and it rotates the car around. So effectively, by doing that, I think he just, it was a little bit too much right hand down there from Dylan Scott, and that just caused the wheels to go air side on the right hand side of the car. And when one wheel is spinning in the air, what's that doing? Absolutely nothing. And just the centrifugal force spun the car around just by the approach vector onto the curbing.
Sausage is great for breakfast, not so great for racing, unfortunately. Next on his list is going to be Dustin Heindel. And Heindel's last lap was a 2:59. Compared that to Dylan Scott running a 2:58.6. So he should have better pace on gunning him down. Jad Duncan, by the way, ran his personal best last time by. So Jad's actually doing a pretty good job of keeping the pace up here. And now he just has to focus on what he is doing to try and keep himself, hopefully, out of reach from Dylan Scott. So did Rondeau have another problem, or did he get a pass done here? Looks like he out-accelerates Larry Haas and gets that one done.
Ooh. With a nice, cheeky, slim, shady move around the outside from Leiden. But again, like I said, it's just about making the best use of the opportunities. And because of that big moment there for Dylan Scott, it's dumped him out of the podium spot. So BJ Fulton, 5.3 seconds behind Jad Duncan. So again, this is, everyone's in the same boat here, Joe. This is a new track that everyone's had to learn and get up to speed with very quickly. The good thing is, at least with the series, it's every fortnight that we go racing here at the POC Sim Racing series, so they will have had a little bit of time to just to get an understanding of the nuances. And when I said about the total of 85 meters worth of total elevation, that is including all the dips and the dips that we see, and then they go over a slight crest, down a little dip, over another crest. But the thing is that with this track here, there's one thing that I've noticed with these dips and undulations. There's not that much of a blind crest or blind corner apex to have to deal with.
There's a few of them, it seems, out there. It's been a minute since I've hopped in a car and driven around this place. But there are a few, I think, that come up and smack you a little bit. You'll see here as they come up through turn 5 once again. Definitely have a nice sight line up to 6. Then, of course, it is very flat as well, so there's not much to really give you a brake marker along the side of the track either. I'm sure that is a difficulty in itself as well. Dustin Heindel working to catch up to BJ Fulton last lap between them. Heindel was quicker by about 0.3 of a second.
Yeah, and well, they matched each other, did the top 3 on the opening sector this time around. But yeah, I think it's, just seeing a little rise there through the sweeper here at turns 12, 13 and 14. And then it's on the power out of 15. And in many respects, it just goes to show that with this, like this is a bit like VIR, a little bit of VIR involved there in that section between turns 18 to 20, and then another rise, down a dip again. Oh, and Heindel nearly loses the back end. That gets a big old wobble.
Yeah, a little bit of dirt kicked up, I think, that time, and that allows Dylan Scott to really close in on him. Just a few more feet, and he's going to be within striking range. And that is a good comparison there through 16 to 21, kind of being a bit like either the snake or the climbing S's that you have to try and tackle at VIR. Dylan Scott, if he catches, the thing that I'm curious about here, Alex, if he catches Heindel, does he try to pit right away so that he can do an undercut? Because I think he's the faster of the two. Or does he try to make the overtakes on track and go for the lighter car?
Yeah, I think it's as the race progresses here at the bend, you know, they're going to have a significant amount of fuel, but it's going to whittle away with the amount of, you know, it's very much lift off the throttle, go on the brake, turn it in, throttle, brake, turn, and you're constantly on a knife edge because the steering wheel's constantly being worked, the brakes and the throttle constantly being worked. You're up and down the gearbox like a yo-yo on a string. So, especially when you go through from turns 12 to turn 23, that seems to be the one where you really, really have to keep your eyeballs on stalks.
Currently following Marciniak, he's chasing the other Rondeau, Mark Rondeau, currently running in 5th. That's him in the orange and blue, you see, leading this pair. Mark up 1, Chris also up 1 position. For a long time, until we had that spin from Dylan Scott, top 4 were all in the same positions that they started this race in. Though Dylan's going to try and return that to the status quo as he's now catching up to Dustin. The gap between them only about half a second.
Yeah, it looks like Dustin's been mowing the grass again. That front splitter of his. Dylan got a few twigs and a branch maybe that might have been left on the side here at the circuit. But again, you know, we have seen how quick Dylan has been, especially behind Jad in the early throwings of the race before he had that moment through T1. So he's closed that gap to what was about a second and a half behind Dustin Heindel, and that has now been reduced by 2/3, so around about half a second behind the 117. So Dylan Scott looking again just to pick up the pace and just carry on that momentum moving forward. And bearing in mind, on the last tour, he took a massive 1.45 seconds out of Heindel, and now is teeing up a move here.
I'm glad you mentioned it, because if you didn't say that, I was going to say something. That the speed differential is looking monstrous between the pair of them. Dylan Scott is not sitting around after his mistake. He is pushing at full tilt. That said, last lap, he actually was slower than Jad Duncan by about 0.2 of a second. Now, whether that is some of the aero weight coming off of Dustin Heindel, or if he's still trying to get his wits back together, Jad Duncan is certainly not slow himself as we watch Scott come around the latter half of the lap now. This is around 26 and 27, up into 28. This is definitely a slower part of the track as it twists and winds into itself.
Yeah, as now Alan Watts being closed in on by Lydon Rondeau, who in the same vein, I mean, he's had a big moment in this race and he's doing exactly what Dylan Scott did, and he goes round the outside into turn 25 and gets through for 7th. So Lydon now up. He's only lost 2 places, qualified P5 ahead of Dad Mark. So let's not forget that Lydon is actually the youngest driver on our POC Sim Racing grid. And again, we are just seeing an evolution of how Lydon has gotten to grips with the car. Obviously, you know, yes, there is still some unfortunate mistakes being made, but it's part of the learning process here on iRacing.
Exactly. And I think that is one of those signs that there is speed there. I think he is going to be a force to be reckoned with as he gets more experience in the sim and gets seat time. Dustin Heindel and Dylan Scott have plenty of experience themselves, so this should be a fun fight between the pair of them. Question is it going to be a 3-way fight? Because they are both continuing to reel in BJ Fulton as well, and they're getting awful close to that black number 82, gray number 82, I should say. So I think this could get a little bit more complicated in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, the gap has been truncated by both Heindel and Scott in the chase of Fulton at the moment for P2 on the road. And let's put it into perspective here. They're only 1.7 seconds behind. Both Heindel and Scott were quicker than BJ Fulton, who did a 2:59.107. But you have to factor that the quickest driver out of the trio is this man that we're riding on board with at the moment. Dylan Scott last time did a 2:58.37. Heindel a 2:58.76, and BJ Fulton a 2:59.10. So that just goes to show the differential. And Dylan's look at this section, 145 miles an hour for dabbing on the brakes, down to fourth, down to third. And again, it's just like that. Dylan Scott through this part of the circuit, and this is at the top part through turns 18 to 20. Dylan Scott, you could see just how much more confident and committed he is. But there's a sausage curb that was his nemesis at T1 a couple of laps ago. So he's got to watch out for that. And Dustin Heindel, along with that, because he's getting the pressure from behind, it's Dylan Scott's way of saying to Dustin Heindel, right, you've got the hurry up, let's go hunting.
Yeah, it's cut down about 0.8 of a second behind BJ Fulton. They're continuing to get ever closer. You can see through the windscreen both cars just in front. What's it going to look like down into turn one? That's the big question I have, because we've seen Dylan Scott get awful close in the past. Tiny little corrections coming off the turn, but I think that's just because we're seeing this car, this number 08, really be pushed all the way to the edge.
It's definitely bringing the neck of that 4-litre flat six boxer engine car, producing just around about 520 horsepower. But again, Heindel, you could just see through this double left-hand complex, and that's through at turns 31 and 32. A little bit of a slight mistake there, I think, from Dylan Scott, so that's cost him time. But Heindel is still trying to reel in BJ Fulton. They're coming out of turn 34 now, short blast up to 35. And then they've got 0.6 of a mile to really start getting the slipstream. And look at this, Dylan Scott, by that mistake, he's gone into the pits. He's decided with just under 19 minutes to go, he's one of the first of our top 5 to come down pit lane.
See, I kind of expected this. I figured if he didn't get by that 82 car, or excuse me, the 117 immediately, he's not going to mess around with this. He knows he's quicker. Even if he takes a pit stop, has a little bit more fuel in the car, and is slightly heavier, he is going to be the quicker of the two. We're at the halfway point of this race, so it's not too early. It is well into the later stages now. And when he comes out, we'll see if his pace is good enough to jump both cars, or maybe just one.
Yeah, I think the jury will be out on that one when we see both Fulton and Heindel pit. But I've got a feeling here, Joe, that Heindel will actually blink first in comparison with Fulton if he doesn't get past him quickly. But with the gap still being 3/4 of a second, I think Fulton's going to extend this fuel window on this opening stint out of the two as long as he can. And that might help him a little bit in the pit lane, trying to close down the gap to Jad Duncan, who is now 10.4 seconds up the road. So Jad Duncan absolutely flying. He's been consistently in the low 258s or the high 257s. He just did a 257.899. BJ Fulton nearly 2 seconds slower. Dustin Heindel a second slower than Duncan. And yeah, I think it's going to be a case of who's going to roll the dice first, and is it going to be Snake Eyes or lucky number 7 on the blackjack table?
Yeah, it's telling that Jad Duncan still has the fastest lap of the race after taking it away from Dylan Scott a little bit earlier. So Dylan has not been quick enough that he has been cutting down. I kind of wish I had looked at the gap between himself and the leader before he pitted. So I don't have that information in front of me on how much time had changed, because it was about 9 seconds, I should say, after his spin up to the leader, which is a pretty healthy gap to make up, even in a 40-minute race with how close on pace Jad and Dylan typically are.
I think when Dylan came into pit lane, the gap was probably the best part of 13 seconds, give or take. So that has extended, because obviously with that spin behind Jad Duncan, that put him in a bit of a hurt locker. And so having been behind both Heindel and Fulton, who he is quite clearly a lot quicker than, let's be truthful here, that because he was stuck behind Dustin Heindel for so long, I don't think there was an air of frustration. I think it was just a case of, right, okay, how do I offset this 13-second gap that has found its way between myself and Chad? So Heindel now dives in. So Fulton is going to extend the lap window along with Chad Duncan, who is now 11 seconds up the road. So I think BJ Fulton could be on that 3000 IQ fuel strat to try and get himself a podium. And let's not forget, last season, he was Mr. Consistency when it came to getting seconds, getting thirds. But I don't think, if I remember correctly, he picked up a win last season, did he?
He did not. It was all seconds and thirds. Good catch. So, yeah, he's still looking for that one. I don't know that it's going to happen today. Interesting that Dustin Heindel is responding strategically. So he wants the track position over Scott. Question is, as we watch him in the upper right, will he be there? And it looks like he will, unless this is a deep dive, and it is. Can he actually make the corner? Yes. And he just sneaks by in time. Dylan Scott has made the undercut work. Now he's got to run away and see if he can use it to get by Fulton as well.
That's one of the good things, that Dylan Scott has taken advantage of that situation and now has got clean air, so he can stretch the legs on that flat six boxer engine. And let's see what that does over maybe, say, the next couple of laps. I mean, in the opening sector, a 33.7, and, well, Dustin Heindel, of course, coming out of pit lane. You know, he was at pit lane speed, had to get off the limiter, but what you have to consider, folks, is that Dylan Scott was at full throttle, pushing about 150 miles an hour, and then goes for that deep dive bomb. It worked because it meant that Heindel had to respond accordingly, and thereby he went, well, I can't do anything about this. I'm powerless. I've just got to let Dylan go by. And the good thing is that this is going to give a reference point for Dustin. But already, you can see by the delta here, Dylan Scott is already 1.3 seconds up the road from Dustin Heindel.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that he was held up a little bit being stuck behind Dustin. These cars do give off a fair bit of aero wake. They're not like F1 cars and needing huge amounts of downforce, but it's enough that from talking to real-world drivers and from drivers in the sim, you do experience a little bit of downforce loss coming around various corners. But he's making good use of the clear air now. His next goal going to be try to make sure that BJ Fulton does not emerge ahead of him after his pit stop. And then, of course, seeing whether or not he can catch up to Chad Duncan. Last lap for Chad. Actually a little slower than what we were seeing before, 2:59.3. So now we wait for Dylan Scott to cross the timing beam and see what kind of lap time he runs. BJ Fulton, who we're watching, a 2:59.7, about 4/10 slower than our current leader.
Okay, putting it into perspective here, reference pit stops. Dylan Scott's pit stop total time from pit lane in to pit lane out was a 42.948, so call that 43 seconds. At the minute, he is on the cusp of 43 seconds off of BJ Fulton. He's 53 seconds. No, actually, make that Mark Rondeau's now in the pits. So so is son Lydon. So Lydon goes to cover off his dad. But what this means is that Dylan Scott at the minute is closing that gap, and it is 40.6 seconds between him and BJ Fulton in terms of how you might want to parlay that with regards to pit stops. Now, we're seeing fueling going in Mark Rondeau, 10.6 seconds. If BJ Fulton can get that under 10 seconds for that fuel stop, that might give him the edge over Dylan Scott for P2.
Might just. We'll have to wait and see. This is on board with Marciniak. Mark Rondeau comes out just behind him. Both have taken their pit stops. And if I recall, I believe Christopher was behind Mark before the pit stop. So another successful undercut. And the reason that we're bringing this up is because typically in iRacing, for tin top cars, for GT cars, the undercut usually doesn't work unless you have a pretty decent pace advantage. The car gets heavier with the fuel, and that eats into any speed that you might have, especially considering they're not changing tires in this series.
But one of the other things that I've noticed, Dylan Scott on the last tour took over 1.2 seconds out of BJ Fulton. That gap is now south of, it's 39.8 seconds. And Dylan's just taken another 0.3 out of BJ in that opening sector. BJ's just gone across the time of being in sector 2 with the 1:17.8. Wondering if Dylan is going to make up most of his time through that middle sector. That's going to be quite crucial for him in how much he can try and put the brightness, because BJ will be looking at the relative delta on his HUD and will know where nearly another 0.6 taken out of the middle sector. So it says to me that maybe BJ Fulton might pit this time, maybe to cover off Dylan Scott, but he's got a hell of a Herculean task to do that.
Chad Duncan did pit in. I kind of expected this since we're probably around the end of the pit window, and that confirms that BJ Fulton can't go any farther. When BJ Fulton pits, you know that you have stretched the pit window about as far as it can go. Dylan Scott is the next one on track, so we will have a direct comparison as we watch him approach. We watch second place BJ Fulton take his trundle down pit lane looking for his service, as Chad Duncan has already hit his stall.
Yeah, I think that maybe, BJ Fulton's only just stopping in the pit lane. So I think that maybe Dylan Scott might have this. He might make the undercut work here as Chad Duncan comes out of pit lane. 10.367 seconds stationary for fuel. Here comes Dylan Scott. That's going to base BJ Fulton. This is going to be close. He's going to have to gun it coming out of pit road. But here comes Dylan Scott. It's a repeat of what we saw between him and Dustin Heindel. Can Scott get through? He's going to look to the inside line. He's done it again, but he's not going to get it this time.
Oh, he's side by side with him. It switches back to the left and then back to the right through 3. That'll give him the inside. He's on the racing line. It's a cleaner part of the track and just scoots ahead. But now it's into turn 5 and he has to leave a little bit of space, or does he? He chops across the bow of BJ Fulton, who is going to send it back into turn 6. He will retort and they are going to come together. That spins BJ Fulton, and Dustin Heindel has to take evasive action. They'll both get away without making contact, but not for Scott and Fulton.
Yeah, that was a case of unstoppable force versus a movable object there. I mean, Dylan Scott, neither BJ Fulton wanted to give way. They gave as much room as they could on the width of the circuit here at the bend. But yeah, I mean, I knew it was going to be close. I didn't realise it was going to be that close. But let's put it into perspective. BJ Fulton, if he was maybe half a second quicker on his fueling, he might have been ahead of Dylan Scott going into turn 1. But then Dylan Scott still would have had that run of the momentum carry, and could we have seen a potential different situation on that front? But yeah, I mean, it's two drivers going for the same bit of real estate, and something's got to give there. Unfortunately, BJ Fulton getting the short end of that matter.
Boy, did he. And you say half a second faster in the pits. He's far and above the quickest in pit lane compared to everybody. 8.8 seconds. Everybody else was in the double digits in their pit stop time. So, yeah, I think it still went extremely well for BJ Fulton. Just he maybe wound up on the bad end of the stick. We've got a replay of the incident. Let's take another look at it. This should show a good angle of what exactly happens here, how far back Dylan Scott comes from. But my main interest is seeing, does BJ Fulton slide a little bit wide going into turn 6, or is this Dylan Scott turning down on him?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one to, well, we're going to find out now, because they're going through into turn 5. Dylan Scott cuts across the front. And then BJ Fulton, well, he goes late. Oh, it was a bit of a 50-50. Dylan
Yeah.
Scott turning in, and BJ Fulton might the car did veer to the right a little bit there. Maybe just trying to overcorrect, maybe some slippage on the back end in terms of traction through the corner there, Joe.
Yeah, it was very weird. It's like it started to drift out mid-corner, mid-apex. So not sure if he just had turned in a little bit too shallow or what, because it looked like at first he had the corner, and then suddenly car just said, no, I'm done gripping. And off he went into the side of Scott, who was simultaneously trying to come down to the apex himself. So it is what it is. We'll see whether or not there's any sort of penalties post-race. There's 5 minutes left to decide this one. And the bad news for Dylan Scott is that he is probably a bit too far away to try and catch up to Jad Duncan. So Duncan looked to be on course for a victory.
We're gonna. Oh, and Mark Rondeau decides the back end decides to step out to the left-hand side on the number 11 car. But we've got another replay coming up, and I think this is with BJ Fulton. So we're gonna. Oh right, so he dives to the inside, understeer. Oh, there's the contact. So maybe the understeer was what triggered the incident through no fault of BJ's. Maybe he was just carrying a little bit too much momentum, but he's trying to cover off Dylan at that point. And sometimes it just gets a little bit frantic behind the wheel there, Joe.
Yeah, sometimes you're just a little bit too ambitious on those binders. By the way, I went to look. Jad Duncan has not won since the last race of 2025. In fact, he won the last 2 races of 2025. So the 83 car is way overdue for a win.
That is 13 races. 13 races, considering every season that we have here at the POC is always 12 rounds. So a baker's dozen, and then he finally picks up a win, and he's got a big gap, 14 seconds. So yeah, Dylan Scott, it doesn't matter how much tarmac he's got in front of him and clear air, to the point that you were just making, that yeah, Jad Duncan, he's just basically got to bring the car home, go on cruise control.
Yeah, it's not over yet, so we can't count any chickens. So things could still go awry. And Larry Haas is also finding himself going a little bit awry. And again, those curbs just seem to unsettle the car a little bit too much off into the thicket. And eventually he's able to get it turned around. Thankfully does the right thing and allows John Momeyer to go on by before having an unsafe rejoin. Glad to see drivers taking good care on that one, because sometimes the red mist can be down after an incident like that.
And I also have to credit the drivers that are still running out of the 11 that started this race, Joe, that we haven't seen that many incidents like I thought we might do, considering the wide expanse that this track covers. You know, they've gotten to, in their own way, shape or form, we've gotten to grips with it. Okay, yes, we've had a few spin-outs, we've had a couple of moments, a couple of accidents where 2 drivers have come together, but in general, it seems like drivers are really getting the hang of this circuit as we're heading towards the final 3 minutes of the race. Yeah,
I think Jad Duncan especially, with a great handle of it, because like I said earlier, there were periods where he was the fastest car on track consistently. He still holds the fastest lap of this race. So yes, Dylan Scott has been quick. He's reeled him in at times. But ultimately, I'd say that Jad Duncan has taken this opportunity not to just rest on his laurels and cruise home, like you said. He's pushed this the entire way.
There's no let up. But I mean, the thing is, we're now in sector 2 as he's making his way out of turn 14. We are going to be very tight on time, I think, here, Joe, because when you look at it, we've got 2 minutes and 10 seconds. It could be this plus one more lap. We're on lap 13. I think we're going to get one more time by and go on to the white flag lap. But Jad Duncan, as you rightly said, he is not resting on his laurels. He is continuing to push. He's wanting to make that winning margin as high as he can. Maybe can he get it to 15 seconds by the end of the race? Who knows?
I was watching, and it will indeed be one more lap at the line. So he'll get around in time for that one. Just noticed as well, I didn't really pay attention that it is not quite at sunset because it's only 3:40 in the afternoon, but sun is low in the sky during this winter time, at least in the lower hemisphere race for these drivers. So beautiful sunset starting to form off amongst the cloudy day that we have here and just peeking through the openings that are available. Jad Duncan, though, is a little bit more focused on the track itself and probably isn't too concerned with any beautiful scenery, but just wants to try and hit his marks each and every corner.
Yeah, and he's just making his way through the double left at turns 31 and 32, and then 3 more corners out of 33. Then the double right-hander, which will bring us on to 1 more time to go, which will bring us nicely onto the white flag lap. So, yeah, here we go. Jad Duncan started from pole, battled with the Dylan Scott in the early goings before Dylan Scott's unfortunate spin. But there it is, white flag, Joe. We're on our final lap.
And you make a good point about that battle that they did have. We can't forget that it was a fight for the lead, not just in the first few corners, but with Dylan Scott holding on to him after that and pushing him, making a few attempts here and there to try and make the overtake. And then it was his own unforced error that has cost him what will be a bigger gap than maybe it should have been. 1 lap to go. Jad Duncan looking to finally get back on the top step. All he has to do is make about 29 more corners.
Sounds like an eternity when you say it like that. 29 corners is like, yeah, 28, 27. It's like a game show where you're waiting for the timer, and it's just ended up on, you know, they've gone, yeah, we're going to really slow it down, make everyone get really, really nervous, and be like, oh, come on, just put me out of my misery. Meantime, Lydon Rondeau and Alan Watts battling tooth and nail over the 7th spot here. So Rondeau hasn't quite gotten away from Watts in the Lando Norris Special, as I seem to call it, the number 8 car. But this is actually the closest battle. But here is a replay of why Alan Watts is behind Lydon Rondeau. Oh, that was nearly a bit of Tokyo drift there from the young man, but he managed to keep it together, but lost all that advantage. So Alan Watts will want to try and put one up on the youngster.
Lydon's got to try and minimize the mistakes here at the end. They just took that white flag, so 1 to go to try and bring it home. No more of those half spins, because if he has another one of those, Alan Watts is going to be absolutely pouncing. And it'll be last lap Lando for Alan Watts, taking at least 1 more position and moving up to 7th. Jad Duncan, though, is out to turn 28. This is turn 29, just a handful more to go for him. And the gap is up to about 14 seconds now. So not sure if he'll reach the 15-second mark that Alex mentioned, but it certainly is going to be a healthy one to the finish. Lydon Rondeau is behind him now. He's lost the position.
Well, like you said, it's all about those little mistakes, those little faux pas, but just a couple more corners to go. And after 40 minutes, one man is going to get to the checkered flag first.
2 corners left, down into 34. Sharp hairpin, this one. And then a little bit more of an open right-hander for 35. As we get a look at the replay of what cost him the spot. Another little half spin. No such dramas for Jad Duncan. He finally gets another win, his first in more than a full season's worth, but it is going to taste sweet.
Yeah, and well, it could have been a different story if this man had kept with him. But despite that spin, Dylan Scott doing a great recovery drive, managing to out-drag BJ Fulton despite the contact between them, takes P2, and it's a second successive third-place finish for Dustin Heindel. But meantime, BJ Fulton will cross the line in 4th, about 3 seconds ahead of Chris Marciniak. But this battle is going to go right down to the wire between Messrs Watts and Lydon Rondeau. And BJ Fulton crosses the line, takes P4. Rondeau with a late dive to the inside. Watts to the outside, trying to counter-attack. There's going to be a little bit of a drag race here. Rondeau still to the outside of a left-hander coming up. Keeps the momentum pinned through the double left at turns 31 and 32. And despite all those half spins, he might have just given himself a little bit of redemption, but there's still a couple of corners left to go in this battle here for P7. Oh, late
Whoa.
dive from Alan Watts, tags the back of Leiden Rondo, and he's around.
It's and Rondeau gets a penalty for too many incident points. He's going to lose the position from the. Oh no! Well, he's going to try to serve it, but I keep telling drivers you can't do that on the last lap. There's no Schumacher move in iRacing, so. Well, Leiden Rondeau will have to settle for that 8th place as Alan Watts will finish ahead of him in the end. Momeyer and Haas going to round out the last of the 2 to finish this race. Jim Garamani, interestingly enough, had a disconnect because of connection issues, it seems. So it wasn't just a driver, a damage on the car that cost him that one, as Momeyer wraps that up. How about Jad Duncan with his victory? He's going to have to feel pretty happy with himself because he earned that one, and he'll take full points after that win of 20 added to his markers. With Colby not here, he's certainly going to be shooting up the order. Dylan Scott, though, finishes second for the second race in a row, and Dustin Heindel does likewise with third, taking a back-to-back. BJ Fulton was fourth today. Chris Marciniak, P5. Then it was Mark Rondeau in 6, getting overtaken in the pit stops by Marciniak. Alan Watts with 7th, and John Momeyer winding up in 8th. 9th went to Larry Haas, Leiden Rondeau in 10th, and Jim Garamani in 11th today. Looks like we do have Jad Duncan ready to chat with us. Let's have a little conversation about his first win in over a season. Jad, congratulations. I said you had to work for it. Did it feel like that?
Did, especially the first few laps. Dylan was really pushing hard.
Now, he made a mistake on his own. Was that a weight off your shoulders, or were you worried that he would be able to try and run you back down?
A little of both. I was watching him. I think he had a couple of little bobbles in the first couple of laps. I thought he was pushing really hard to try to keep up. Once that first corner, too, once I got back in the lead, I thought I could probably hold him off based on practice and qualifying times, but he was really making me work the first few laps. But then once I broke the draft and got a little bit of a lead, then things started looking better.
This is the longest permanent circuit bar the Nürburgring, so there's a lot to memorize around here. How did you find the speed? Because I believe you were also fastest of anybody that whole race.
I really like this track. I thought it was a lot of fun. Whereas I hate the Nürburgring. I just don't think it flows or anything. This, I thought, was a great track with lots of good corners and flowing into one another. Takes a bit to learn, but once you get it, I really enjoyed it. I'd love to drive it in the real life because it just looks like a great track. And unlike most Australia tracks, I didn't feel like it was trying to kill me.
Yeah, that's also a rarity. But man, it was impressive what you were able to do out there. Enjoy the victory.
I will. Thank you.
That was Jad Duncan in the number 83. Survived this track, and so did Dylan Scott. But Alex, he maybe had a few mistakes along the way.
Yes, indeed. Blame myself. I got to stop joining 2 minutes before qualifying and figuring out what the track conditions are like, during qualifying. I am not doing myself any favors like that.
And talk about that incident through turn 1. Was it just too much curb? Were you trying too hard to get back up to Jad Duncan? What happened?
No, I think it was during any time I practice, I figured it was you could take curb or not take curb. Didn't seem to change the lap time much. Didn't seem to upset the car, but now with the hot conditions of tonight compared to practice, that's what I'm saying. Like, I can't just join in and qualifying and then find out the hard way that you can't do things you can do on other nights. So yeah, it wasn't anything particular. Just the car was ready to turn in, so I'm like, all right, fine, I'll turn in and head across the curb like any other night, and the car just didn't like it, so around she went, which put me back in the pack a little bit, but it is what it is.
Now, we were kind of watching to see whether or not you pitted once you caught up to Dustin Heindel. Was that an attempt to try and undercut him? And boy, it was close, but it was successful.
Yeah, it's funny because as I was catching Dustin, he's like, "Hey, do you want to pit, Dylan?" I'm like, "I don't know. Do you want me to pit? Are you trying to sucker me into something?" So I did go one extra lap, and then I thought, nah, it's probably not it's not a bad idea from Dustin. If he doesn't pit, then I will pit. So yeah, I thought, let's try something different. I'll take Dustin's strategy advice, and it worked out. It worked out to catch him into turn one. The closing speed, I wasn't sure, right, because he was sort of slightly in front, but I guess the closing speed, and the same with BJ, it just sort of slingshots you into turn one in comparison to the people coming out of the pit. So, it was a little bit tentative going through there, and then BJ and I raced for many more corners down to the hairpin. I think he lost the front. I hope I didn't contribute to his hitting and us hitting and him spinning, but yeah, we'll review it after the race.
Yeah, we took a couple looks at it as well, and it definitely looked like a hard call. Now, you had a single second place finish all last season. Now suddenly you've had 2 in a row. You're not making a habit of this, are you?
Consistency, it doesn't hurt, right? Like, yeah, I think so far my season's starting off better than last time. I think next time maybe joining earlier and getting myself in sync with the track. What bothers me is practicing during the week or during the weeks leading up, and then I get onto the night and it's like completely different conditions. The car doesn't do the same things, and all of a sudden the things I was doing before don't work on the night. Jad and I run the same lap times. We were there practicing. So why tonight? I don't know. Just hotter conditions. So it is what it is. We'll figure it out next time.
Like the positive outlook heading to the next race. Congratulations on another podium. Like you said, consistency is always a good thing, and hopefully we'll get to chat to you when we head off to Daytona.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
That was Dylan Scott, and that is going to wrap up our interviews. So big thanks goes to the community, or to the league, as well as to our sponsors, Porsche, there is no substitute, and Top Gun Wealth, your retirement wingman. Big thank you to the team today, Alex, Christian, and Dougie, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment, both here on GSRC and on the Porsche Owners Club channel. Next time out, as we mentioned, they're going to the Daytona Road Course, another classic for sports cars. Should be an exciting one with how it keeps the racing close due to the oval portions. And then we've got some other types of racing coming your way later this week. Skip Barber goes to Donington. And then, of course, there are many others that you can check out on our broadcast listed here. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.
This is iRacing.